This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good. So, having taken a significant break from our regular scheduling, which was learning about Shabbos, right? We had a little holiday called Pesach that came up along, and that was a little. We had Purim, I think. We had Pesach, and then we had Sfiras HaOmer, the counting of the Omer. So, yeah, we now return to our regular programming, so to speak, and we are on page 63 in this booklet over here. And I'm sorry, how do you pronounce your name again? Sorry? Zaira. And Zaira, the rule of this class, very, very strict rule. Very, very strict rule. Everyone's getting nervous. The very strict rule of this class is no one's embarrassed to ask any questions. Okay? And if I say a word that you don't know what it means, ask. Okay? Never be embarrassed about asking any question. Okay? That's the very strict rule of this class. Right? Absolutely no one is granted any room for embarrassment from asking any questions. Okay. So let's go through. Okay. All right, we're gonna go through this a little bit. Okay, this is relevant for us. Page 63 is Kabbalat Shabbat or Kabbalas Shabbos. What is the difference between Kabbalat Shabbat and Kabbalah Shabbos? The saws and the tas, right? Which is the difference between a Sephardic pronunciation and an Ashkenazic pronunciation. By an Ashkenazic pronunciation, if a tuf has a dot in it, it's a tuf. Without a dot, it is a suf. Sephardic pronounces it with or without a dot. It pronounces it as a tuf. How's everybody doing with the Hebrew reading, by the way? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. All right. So that's all. Right, but that's something that that we need to work on. Okay, so the evening prayers begin with the recitation of Kabbalat Shabbat, different selection of psalms, the poem L'Chadodi, and other prayers. Right, so we're all familiar with the beautiful, beautiful Friday night davening, done beautifully and particularly beautifully here at Beth Jacob with a lot of really nice singing, and it really is beautiful. Okay. When it's close to sunset, the second of the diamonds there, right? We welcome the Shabbos by Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat. Okay, we should say it in time, right? Okay, and further make an effort to arrive in time. Good to say with the congregation. We in fact do early Shabbos here once we have once we're off daylight savings, and so we end up starting Shabbos here early. And there are a number of important halacha that go along with that. And that is, if the wives are home and are running late, you don't need to start Shabbos when we are starting over here. In other words, we'll see in a moment that we accept Shabbos once we get to the last stanza of the L'Chadodi prayer. But Natalie lights candles at home, right, around the time of candle lighting time, right? So if you want to bring it in early, you're more than welcome to, but you're not bound to bring it in the same time that the shul is bringing it in, because there are different shuls in the neighborhood that bring it in later. If it's in a camp setting where that's the only one minyan and they're bringing it in early, then a person needs to accept it at that point. But that's not the case over here. Mar, I'm just giving you a class. I could speak to you afterwards, okay? Things are pretty much sorted out, but I'll talk to you later. Okay? Okay, thanks. Okay. Yeah. So also another issue that comes up now that we make early Shabbos over here is that there is a point that is too early to bring in Shabbos. And that's why starting this month already, I think in May, I already have on the calendar the earliest candle lighting time and the regular candle lighting time. Okay? But that's important to keep in mind, right? If the husbands are going to shul and the wives are home preparing, that you're not bound to start Shabbos along with us, but rather you can start as you, right? As long as you're lighting on time, that is fine. Okay. As we mentioned over there on page 64, when we say the words, the Boi Kala, that is when one is actually accepting upon themselves Shabbos. Okay? Even if one has not prayed that part of the davening, once sunset begins, then Shabbos begins. Okay? Our calendar candle lighting time is on, according to the clock. How do we time that? Is it at sunset? 18 minutes before sunset, in order to give a person time and to make sure. So therefore, if you, right, let's say a person's in a rush, they don't get to light candles at exactly candle lighting times, you have 17 minutes for sure that you can light candles. After that point, then it's not honoring Shabbos, it would be desecrating Shabbos. So that point, after that, one would not be lighting candles. Yes. Earlier or later? Yeah. Correct. Their lighting, one person's lighting does not affect another person's lighting. But once you light, you are accepting Shabbos upon. Okay? Though, I don't know if we did this last time, a woman can make a condition. Whereas, let's say you want to light candles at home, but you want to come to shul, and you want to drive to shul. You want to drive to shul and leave the car here, whatever it is. Right? Driving home from shul is not an option. But driving to shul, right, you want to do, right? But you already lit candles, right? So when lighting candles, a woman can make a condition that I'm not accepting Shabbos upon myself with this lighting, and that will enable the person to continue to do malacha, drive, whatever it might be, of course, only up until, right, shkia, up until sunset. Once sunset arrives, of course, then all malacha, all such activities are prohibited. Why is Shabbos 25 hours? I know, because it's a great day. We want to get as much as we can. But why is it 25 hours? Basically 25 hours. Okay, yes, but it's more it's more structured than that, Gabrielle. We have a time period which is called Bein Hashmashot, which is an in-between time period. That is after from sunset until 3 stars come out. That is an in-between time period. Is it day or is it night? Halachically, is it day? Right? Halacha means Jewish law. Okay, you have to ask questions. Don't let me get away with anything. Okay, strict rule. Okay, strict rules. Okay, so based on halacha, based on Jewish law, halachically, we say, right? So that day, that time period is a safek. It is a doubt. Is it day or is it night? So when it comes to Friday, we have to say it might be night. So we stop doing any malacha at that point, or really, if a woman lights candles, 18 minutes before that. Now, about 42 minutes after sunset is when we have full nightfall. Okay? So now when it comes to Saturday, when it comes to Shabbat, now it's the opposite. We look at that confused period, that confused status period, and on Shabbat, whereas on Friday night we have to say maybe it's night, stop doing malacha beforehand. On Saturday, on Shabbat, what do we say? Maybe it's still Shabbat, maybe it's day. So you can't do work until that period ends. That's why Shabbos will come in, let's say this week, I don't know exactly, But let's say if Shabbos comes in at 7:25, then Shabbos will go out at 8:25. Why? Because 7:25 plus 18 plus, which is the 18 minutes we stop before sunset, plus 42 till we get to the stars out, right? So 18 and 42 equals 60, equals an hour. So basically, if Shabbos starts 7:15, then Shabbos will end, be it 8:14, 8:15, 8:16, right around there. So therefore, the Shabbos is going to be an extra hour because we take that safek, that unsure time period. Friday, we treat it as Shabbat night. Shabbat, we treat it as Shabbat. Saturday, we treat it as Shabbat day. And that's how we have our 25-hour Shabbat. Okay. Okay. Yes. Sure.
Is there a lot of difference to the service?
Okay. So our evening service.
It's mostly guys.
Yes. 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 Women are more than welcome to come. And there are always a handful of women who do come. Right? Jackie likes to come, but it's hard to get out sometimes. Right? So Esther, are you asking, is it different in terms of structure or is it different? Okay, so in general, Mariv, the evening davening prayers, is different than the Shacharit morning prayers. Okay? On Shabbos, that difference becomes even more accentuated, right? Because in addition to the usual Mariv, we have the whole thing of Kabbalat Shabbat, the different psalms that we say and songs that we sing, right? Now, Shabbos morning is also different than a regular weekday morning. Once again, the Shabbos morning davening, the Shacharit is longer. We have Torah reading, a longer Torah reading, and then we have also Musaf, right? Musaf is the additional prayer corresponding to the additional sacrifices which were brought on Shabbat. Okay, so it is a bit different. Whereas, let's say over here on a regular weekday night, Mincha and Mariv takes us, besides the learning in between, takes us about a half hour. On Friday night, it will take us about an hour and 10 minutes typically. Whereas Shacharit during the week takes us, let's say, about 45 minutes to an hour, right? On Shabbos morning, it takes us about 3 hours. Yeah, but that's because we do a lot of singing also. And the rabbi speaks for much too long. Yeah. Okay. So Mariv, we're not going to go through page 65. The Kriyat Shema of Mariv. Okay. We're going to not go through that. The Amidah of Mariv. Okay. The conclusion of Shabbos, Mariv. Okay. Let's go to page 73. Kiddush and the Shabbat meal. Okay. And then, right, the real roll up our sleeves work to do is to go through. We'll get to the different malachot of Shabbat. What are malachot of Shabbat? The not to do's. Yes. But that's correct, Josh. But what would a definition of malacha be? Okay. So, but there, yes, malacha is work, but we differentiate between physical work and creative activities, right? As we've discussed a number of times. On Shabbos, we do our belief in God as a creator by stopping from engaging in creative activities that use our expertise and our technological advances and our knowledge to alter the world. Okay? And therefore, writing a few letters is a malacha, right? Jogging would not be considered in the spirit of Shabbos, but it's not a malacha. Turning on a light switch is malacha, but my walking a mile, right, or moving some furniture around, again, it might not be in the spirit of Shabbat, but it's not a malacha. One is a creative change, right? So that's the main work that we have of Shabbos. But let's go through this and just for you guys to be familiar with it, and that way you can, you'll have this book and be able to use this book as a good reference. Okay, so on page 75, when we come home on Friday night, typically we sing the Shalom Aleichem, right? Which is a Kabbalistic idea that the Talmud speaks about, that when a person comes home on Friday night, one is accompanied by two angels, a good malach, a good angel, and a bad angel. And that's why the first stanza is Shalom Aleichem, welcome to you, Malachei Hasharet, the angels, the ministering angels. They're at odds with one another. The good angel wants to see the table all set and the candles all lit. The bad angel wants to see bedlam over there. And when they come home and they see that things are all beautiful, the good angel gives a blessing, so to speak. So too next week, and the bad angel has to answer, Amen. That's why the next stanza speaks about not Malachei HaSharet, but Malachei HaShalom, angels of peace. Why are they not angels of peace? Because they've reached an agreement. Okay, we sing that, and then we sing also the Eshet Chayil, right? The woman of valor. Men, make sure that you sing that to your wives. Okay, good. Okay, also customarily is a time to bless children, even if your children are not with you. Those of us who might be at an older stage and our children are not always with us, right? Nevertheless, so what Natalie and I try to do is we try to speak to each of the kids on Friday and give them a blessing over the phone. And if we missed any of them, then Friday night we'll pause at this point and we'll give a bracha with them in mind. Okay? And the classic blessing that we give is that God should even make you for boys like Ephraim and Menashe, and by girls, God should make you like Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, like the matriarchs. By the reason we don't use the patriarchs by the boys is because we have an explicit verse in the Torah where Yaakov blessed Yosef, Jacob blessed Joseph, right? And said this bracha that this is how they shall bless their children. So therefore, that's exactly how we do it. Now, in the picture, it has the husband, the father blessing the children. What in my family, well, what Natalie and I do is I give a blessing, and she also gives a blessing to the children. There's never a problem in added blessings. I do them individually, and it's good to do them individually, right? And it's also nice to give an additional little blessing, right? Individualized, right? When my grandchildren are over, right? So I'll whisper in their ears, right? Just how special they are, and they should continue to be so special. Yeah, it's nice to give them a little extra loving, extra blessing, extra loving. These things never, ever, ever hurt. Okay, importantly, Kiddush on page 76 is recited over a cup of wine or grape juice. The text can be found in the Sidur. Women are obligated in the mitzvah of Kiddush as well as in all the other laws of Shabbat. Okay, so if what would happen, let's say when we're living in Israel, the kids were still small, right? If I would be away, sometimes I would come to the States, do a wedding, whatever trip I would have to do. So, right, Natalie would make Kiddush, right? She wouldn't have one of the kids make Kiddush if they were not yet bar mitzvah, right? So a woman is equally obligated in Kiddush as a man is, okay? There is an equal obligation, right? Typically, right, thank you very much. The husband, right, the father makes the Kiddush for the whole family, right? But an interesting thing that you guys might want to do. I'll tell you a little interesting story about this. My father, blessed memory, would like for all of us to make Kiddush together. We should all his boys should sing Kiddush with him. And then when I came back from Israel and I learned halacha, so the Mishnah Brura, which is one of the great halachic works that we have, in one place says that it shouldn't be said all together, because that way it's harder to hear. Those who are listening, it's harder to hear if there are multiple voices. So I wouldn't say it. I'd say, Dad, better that I don't say it along with you. And he wanted his sons to say it along with him. And then I felt very, very bad that later I saw that elsewhere the Mishnah Berurah says that Kiddush is one of the places where you could do it like that. So I wish I would have done it like that and given my father the happiness that he wanted of all of us singing together. What can I do? Opportunities come, and the door closes, and not much you can do, right? But it might be an idea. Let's say for Jonah, right, to learn the Kiddush, to have him and the girls also, right, to encourage them all to say it along with you. Yeah. And that way they'll just get more and more familiar with the Hebrew, more and more familiar. We just, especially in the situation of converting, we just want to raise the comfort level, right? That is such, especially for the kids, adults might, at times feel a little bit uncomfortable, and it's not pleasant for anyone, but we know how to deal with it, right? Or hopefully we know how to deal with it. It's more challenging for kids to deal with it. So anything we can do to raise their comfort level, I think, is a good idea. Okay, the cup used for Kiddush should hold at least the revius. Okay, a typical Kiddush cup, as long as it's holding 4 ounces, you're fine. Okay, the cup must be whole without defects or cracks. Okay, and before Kiddush, the cup should be rinsed with water both inside and out. Okay, that's a good thing to do. Okay, yes, good. Okay, yeah, well, ideally, we don't want to use a disposable cup. We want to use a cup we're using again, right? When I've been in a hotel, let's say, so often they have glasses also, not just disposable cups. They have some glasses, so better to use a glass. One of the challenges is the glasses are big. It takes, and you're supposed to fill up the cup. So, yeah, you don't have to drink the whole thing, but it should be, yeah, as it says on page 78, the cup must be full when Kiddush is recited, right? So it's better to use a halachically large enough toast that's not too large, right, than to use a very large cup. Yes, Jackie? Oh, yeah? Nice. So as long as it's not too small a Kiddush cup.
I don't recall. I just remember walking by.
Uh-huh. That's nice. And Havdalah also, does have it in there? Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. So when traveling, when you're traveling, it comes to lighting candles, so that can be a little bit tricky, right? You really can't light fires in hotel rooms, right? So there, well, what we've done is we go on the balcony, and also very easy if you're traveling, the little tea lights. Tea lights are perfect for Shabbos candles, right? So that way it's easy. It's not, you don't have to travel with your candlesticks, and tea lights are good. So what we've done is we light tea lights out. We actually usually hang a towel on the balcony there, so we have a little privacy there, and light candles there. That way you have your Shabbos candles. One, if necessary, let's say one is in a hospital, right? Or one, right? So then one could use lights, electric lights, ideally incandescent lights, as opposed to fluorescent lights, with a bracha for your lighting. I actually have a little plug-in candelabra when a woman's in the hospital that she can borrow and to use that for light for candle lighting. Right. The reason why incandescent is better than the fluorescent is incandescent is like fire. Basically, it's turning red hot. LEDs and fluorescent work on a different principle that I cannot explain, nor do I know it. I know it's a different principle. But I do know incandescent, the filament is turning white hot, and that is what is casting the light. Yes. Okay. Okay. So all right. So Josiah asked, but Rabbi, you're using a glass in a hotel room. That's not kosher. Or sometimes it might even have like a coffee mug, right? If there's a little kitchenette, right? That's not kosher. So as Gabriella answered, but there's more to the answer than that. Gabriella said that it's cold. Okay. Now, ideally, we would not use a non-kosher plate, bowl, cup, whatever. Even if, granted, if it's cold, you're right. It's not going to become non-kosher. It will not affect the food that's inside. But ideally, we try not to use non-kosher vessels, even for cold. But glass is an exception because glass doesn't really absorb. Actually, the OU, my brother, Alav Shalom, was a caterer. Now, let's say you're doing a big affair. So what you often do is you rent glasses from these companies that rent out all these goblets, whatever they have, to caterers. Kosher caterers can rent glass from any regular place, right? Because glass doesn't absorb, as long as they're only using glass for cold, which they do. And glass is typically only used for cold, right? So therefore glass is really fine. Okay. If they have more of a kitchen, they have coffee mugs there, right? So that wouldn't be your first choice to use, but if you need something for kids, then you could even use that. Yes. Glass is okay. You wouldn't use glass for hot food, right? You wouldn't use glass that you don't know its kashrut status, that you have to assume there is no kosher, that it's not kosher. You would not use that for hot food. Yeah. Correct. Yes. Okay, so Natilat Yadayim is washing of the hands. Okay, so we came up with this great idea of a two-handled cup, and it's very convenient. Now, I think that was more of a business idea that someone had than necessarily a halachic thing, right? So I can use this with Natilat Yadayim. It's not as comfortable as when I have the handles, but it's perfectly fine, right? So the natlan, that the washing cup, is not a halachic issue. It's a convenience issue, and it's a nice issue to have, but it's not something that is required. Yes, Josh. What about like here, just bring water and... Okay. So let's say you don't have a cup. Tell them you don't. You always be able to get some sort of a cup, right? But let's say you wake up in the morning, get off the plane, go to the restroom, right? And you need to wash. Now, after using the facilities, so there you don't need a cup to wash your hands, right? But in the morning, the Natilat Yadayim needs a cup, right? So if you don't have a cup, what do you do? So actually, it looks a little bit weird, but hey, they don't know who I am. What do I care, right? So what you want to have is called what a cup gives you is koach gavra. It's called. It's manpower. You're doing the pouring. Okay. Now, when you open up a faucet, there is water pressure. So you've done the very first water that comes out. That's as a result of your manpower, but the continuing flow is not. So you wouldn't want to turn it on and go, put your hand. What you would want to do is turn it on, hand, turn it on, hand, turn it on, hand, turn it on, hand. And that way, each time, it is your koach gavra. It is your manpower, woman power, right? Human power. Now, nowadays, when you go to the airports, they're all electronic, right? So you got to go. Shh. So as long as it's not crowded, I commandeer 2 sinks. Like I said, right? People think I'm weird, but what can I do? There are enough people. It is. I'm sure to them it's very weird. I admit, right? To someone who understands it, it makes some sense. To those who don't, it's weird. Such is life. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Okay. So there are 2 netilat yadayim. There are 2 categories of netilat yadayim. Okay. One category is when you're washing for bread. Okay. Before we eat bread, we wash netilat yadayim. And there, the way we wash is 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. That ideally should not be in a bathroom because you want to make your bracha, your blessing, afterwards, and you can't make a blessing in the bathroom. So ideally, it's not in the bathroom, but there are times that it needs to be in a bathroom. So be it. You do it in the bathroom, and then again in the airport. So I'll wash my hands if I'm going to be having some bread there. Wash my hands. I'll take one of the paper towels. I won't dry my hands. I'll go outside, I'll make my bracha, I'll dry my hands. People are thinking, why is the guy walking out of the bathroom with a paper towel? The truth is, no one cares. No one cares. No one really cares. We think, especially like kids, oh, everyone's going, no. Not everyone's gonna, no one cares. Everyone's doing their own thing. I remember one time, Natalie and I were flying. We were flying from Israel back to the States. And we were the only Jewish people on the plane, right? And that was evident that as we're walking on, they said to us, oh, you must be the Ciners. I'm mispronouncing it. Because we have your kosher food for you. Okay. So that gave us an indication that there are not too many other Jewish people on the plane. And I prefer not to daven, not to do my prayers on the airplane. Just because, right? You don't have great comment. You can't, on an international flight, you can go stand by the galley. It's just, if I can daven properly, right, before I leave. When I get there, that's ideal. There's sometimes you can't, right? And this flight, right, we got on when it was dark. By the time we would have landed, it would already been afternoon, too late to daven in the morning prayers, shachrit. I had to put on my talis and tefillin. So I figured, okay, I'll put on my talis and tefillin. Of course, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to daven. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to look around, right, it's going to make you feel uncomfortable. So I said, you know what? I'll put on my talis, put on my tefillin. I'm going to sit. I'm going to look at my siddur. I'm going to do the whole davening, right? I'm not going to look around. And I had a very, very nice, slow-paced, no rush, no pressure, nice, beautiful davening. At the end, I said, okay, now I'm going to look around and see what's going on around. I turn around. There are video cameras. No, there was nothing. There was nothing. I turn around. What's everyone doing? This one's asleep. This one's watching the movie. This one's reading a book. This one's drooling. Right? That's what they're doing. Right? No one gave a hoot. Sometimes we think like, oh God, Who cares? First of all, am I ever going to see them again? Right? Who cares? Yeah. Okay. So in the airport, it gets a little trickier, right? But if for bread, you make the blessing outside. Okay. For the morning, there it's not a problem at all. The second Netilat Yadayim is the morning. There it's not a problem at all to do it in a bathroom, because you're not making your blessing right afterwards. You're making the blessing that we make on that as more part of the morning prayers. So you don't need to worry about that at all. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. There are various customs concerning whether to stand or sit while reciting Kiddush, and therefore one can stand, one can sit. Some people stand for the first part, sit for the second part. The reason for standing is we're giving our testimony about the creation of the earth, and witnesses are meant to stand. The reason to sit is because the Kiddush needs to be said at the place where you're having your meal. So you want to establish your place by sitting, and there are different minhagim, different customs, and if you're starting fresh, you can choose whatever custom works best for you. Yeah. Okay. I don't do that. That may be some sort of, well, look, that it's more of a Kabbalistic thing, I guess, right? In the time of the Gemara, the wine was very, very, very strong, and therefore it was ineligible for a blessing until it was diluted. That's not the case now. So in yeshiva, I never saw that. That's more of a Hasidic thing.
Well, it's not necessary.
Absolutely not necessary. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Typically, as we see in 80, as I mentioned before, one person makes kiddush for others, but like I said, in this case, it might be good for the kid to get the kids involved, right? If I'm making kiddush for other people, then the general rule always is when one person is doing a mitzvah on behalf of others, so the person doing it has to have them in mind, that I have in mind that you'll fulfill your mitzvah through me, and the listeners have to have in mind we will fulfill the mitzvah through that other person. Okay? Amen, of course, should be answered to the different blessings. The person who makes kiddush should drink a cheekful of wine. Okay? Okay? And there should not be an interruption between the kiddush and the drinking of the wine. Okay? The reason being that the same way when you make a bracha before food, you don't interrupt, but right away you will partake of the food upon which you made the bracha. So if I made the bracha for all of you, right? Now, when it comes to the kiddush, not everyone you don't need to drink wine by kiddush. The person making kiddush needs to drink. Others, if they like to, they can. They don't want to, they don't have to, right? You don't need. That's why Shabbos by Kiddush over here. Some people come have some grape juice. Some people don't. Whatever you like. Yeah. Okay. And we cover let's see if we can do this. I gotta get ready for flight tomorrow, but let's go a little faster. We cover the challah when we're making the kiddush. Two reasons for that. Respect. One is, that's an interesting one, because normally challah gets the primary, the bread gets the primary blessing. Here it gets pushed off into the secondary slot. So we don't want to, for shame, we don't want to embarrass the challah, so we cover the challah. Not that the bread is going to get embarrassed, but if we show sensitivity even to the bread, then hopefully we'll learn to be sure to show sensitivity to other people, right? So the last thing that a person wants to do is embarrass someone for not covering the challah, right? That would really defeat the whole purpose, right? Right? To embarrass a person for not taking the step to stop the bread from getting embarrassed, which just doesn't get embarrassed, but it's meant to show us not to embarrass a person, right? So, right, you want to be careful with that. Also, the man had a covering top and bottom, right? And the double loaf that we have is to remind us of the double portion of man that fell on Friday. We have the double loaf not on Friday. The manna is the manna that fell from heaven, the bread that fell from heaven when we were traveling in the desert. So we don't have it on Friday, which is when there was a double portion. We have it on Shabbos to show us that all of our sustenance comes from Shabbos. And if one does not work on Saturday, one is not going to lose out in any way whatsoever. Okay, I mentioned, we saw that over there, that Kiddush should be where the 82, where the meal will be held. That's what we said before. Afterwards, we wash our hands, Netilat Yadayim. Whoa! Oh, good. Yeah, good. Okay, correct. Right? Wash the hands, recites the blessing, and only then dries the hands. Right? We discussed this already, right? Normally a bracha is done before the mitzvah. Here, right, we want our hands to be clean before we make the bracha, so we wash our hands. Part of the mitzvah of washing the hands is drying the hands. So don't yet dry the hands, make your bracha, and that way the mitzvah is being done, the bracha is being done before at least the completion of the mitzvah. Okay, 83, it should be a cup, right, that does not have any breaks. You don't want a pitcher, got to be a proper rim. Okay, yeah, right. Women remove their rings before washing. Yes and no. If it's rings that you never take off, then you don't need to remove it. If it's rings that you'll take off before you bathe or shower, then you do need to remove them. Okay, the water should be poured, like we said before, 1, 2, 1, 2. After washing, we said that. Before drying the hands, that's 85. Right? One should not talk or become busy with anything else between the washing the hands and swallowing the piece of bread. Right? And then hamotzi is made. Okay, everyone needs. Okay, here, not everyone should make their own hamotzi. Only the person who's leading should make the hamotzi. Why is that? Because hamotzi, on Friday night, we want to say it over a double loaf of bread. If everyone has 2 rolls in front of them, they can make their own hamotzi. But if I have the 2 loaves, I'll make hamotzi, and then I hand it to you, and you make your own bracha hamotzi. Now your bracha hamotzi is gone on what? On that piece of bread, not on the double loaves. So that's why, right? And of course, one should not speak. Okay. Once again, right? Everyone, 87, right? The person making the bracha has in mind the bracha for everyone listening. The listeners have in mind to be yotzei. Okay, the Shabbos meal. It's a mitzvah to honor Shabbos with fish, meat, wine, other foods and drinks that a person enjoys. Great. Okay, right? Jewish songs, a lot of that, right? But if, let's say, you don't like meat, you don't like fish, right? So then you don't have to have it, right? The Shabbos meal should be a meal that you enjoy, a nice festive meal, okay? And better to have a few less things and not be overburdened, overpressured going into Shabbos than to have everything there and feel like a wet, like a shmata. Like a shmata is a rag by the time Shabbos comes around. Okay, so we have to take care of ourselves, and we sing Shabbos Zmiro, beautiful songs, and then we have a Birkat Hamazon, which we have the benching afterwards, right? We've started benching. The battery's running low. We started with the Shabbos Kiddush, and we finished the whole benching out loud together, which is a good way for people to become more familiar and with the whole benching. So all are welcome to join us. Shabbos Kiddush, we bench the whole thing out loud, and I do that mostly with you guys in mind, okay? But whatever works for everybody. Yes, Esther, you had a question before? You about to ask a question? Or Josh had a question? Yeah. Okay, good point. Thank you. Yes. So Josh asked about the significance of salt. So the altar where the sacrifice was brought always had salt on it. Salt is the idea of preservation, of continuity, right? And we say that our table now is in the place of the altar. When the temple stood, the altar was where there would be atonement. Now it's through the kindness and the hosting that we do at our table, that is where we get atonement. The Gemara's term is the shulchan, the table is similar to the altar. So on our tables also, right? Now, ideally, you have salt for the challah, right? During Rosh Hashanah time, we use honey. Even if one does not have salt, that would not preclude one from making hamotzi properly, because our bread is good. It's very tasty, right? It's good and tasty.
What is the significance of having fish and meat?
Okay. Yes. So the Gemara speaks about, right? There are laws of kashrut, kosher laws. The Gemara says that mixing meat and fish is unhealthy, is dangerous, and therefore we don't do it. Now we might say, I don't think it's really dangerous. We don't think it's dangerous. So my response to that is, I was born BC. I don't look that old. I was born BC, before cholesterol. Okay? When I was growing up, right, Esther,
Yeah.
when you were growing up, we didn't know what cholesterol was. As many eggs as you want, right? All those things, right? Right? And then all of a sudden we find out that cholesterol is the main cause of heart disease, which is the #1 killer in the Western world. So we need to have the humility that, what medical science says today, right, is not always what they'll be saying in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So we use separate fish fork and fish plate, and so we don't mix the two, right? I'm sorry. Yeah. And it's not a big deal. So that's what we do. Yeah. All right, my friends. We'll call it over here. Good seeing everybody. Welcome. Good to have you joining us. Good seeing you. Good night, Leticia. Good night, Rose. Good night, Simone.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
Okay.